And as we draw the curtains here on the polls, we're crossing you over now to Parliament, where, of course, the GNPC is facing the 8-member ad hoc committee. Of course, they will be answering questions on some of the concerns raised by PIAC in their report. We'll take you there now.
From both a legal standpoint and a commercial standpoint and an industry standpoint, we think that we should look at JOHL as a separate entity in light.
Wait a minute. We're dealing with the logic, or we're dealing
with the law? And yes.
The logic and the law, you know what it is. So
yes,
we should be careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, for the clarification. So, in our view, JOHL, and we are not saying that revenues from JOHL should not go into PHF. It's the form that it takes that I think we differ. We say that it's dividends that must go into the PHF. PIAC says that it's revenue from every lifting, which we think should not be the interpretation given to both the PRMA and the Companies Act.
Okay, so if someone were to say that the reason why you're not holding that interest directly is because you want to obviate the consequences of statutory compliance, what would be your answer to that?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I think in this particular case, and I think it has been said already, the seller decided how they were going to sell their asset. This was not something that originated from GNPC. And when the GNPC law gives GNPC the right to acquire interest, but it doesn't say how these interests in what form they should take. And GNPC should be in a position to take advantage of such opportunities however they come. Otherwise, then GNPC will not be able to do business. In this particular case, the seller had decided that they were selling shares in a company that they owned. So GNPC did not have any option as to how it would acquire the interest. And that is why GNPC acquired 100% of the interest in JOHL. So this was not one in which GNPC had any option as to decide how it acquired the interest.
Very well. Honourable K.T. Amon, Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. I entirely understand the concept, so I do not intend to trouble you. All I need to understand is that in all of this, what relates to the finance minister in terms of the allegation made against him? What is it about it?
As far as JOHL is concerned, the finance minister is not responsible for the revenues. Obviously, we have to, at the end of the day, submit our financials, GRA. We have to pay whatever assess tax that we need to pay. And let me say that in 2023, JOHL paid 17 million. 2021, I'm sorry, I'm 1 year ahead of. 2021, JOHL paid 17 million to GRA as tax on its operations. So, as far as the revenue is concerned, I don't think the finance minister has any direct, let me call it, control.
I read the GNPC Act, I read the Company Act, and the other acts under consideration. My understanding is entirely the same as the way you understand it, so I'll pass it on to my other colleagues.
If that is the case, was any money paid into an offshore account? The 100 million, was it paid into an offshore account?
So Honourable Chair, I think the word offshore, when we use, for those who are bankers, you can even have an offshore account in Ghana. So I think the word, when we say offshore, sometimes I get a bit confused because the Bank of Ghana has certain categorizations of foreign currency. And so what we call FCA have offshore account. But to the extent that the question relates to receipts from sale of crude. Yeah, it was paid into an account held at Ghana International Bank in London.
Okay, and who made the payment?
So the buyer of the crude. So buyers of the crude, even in the case of PHF, the buyers of the crude pay directly into the PHF. So they pay directly into whichever account that you designate for them to pay. Yeah.
Very well. Okay. Honorable members, the witnesses are yours now. Yes. Honorable Samuel Okujeda Blakwa.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to find out why the GNPC was not in the capacity to pay for this JOHL transaction. Why did you have to ask the Finance Ministry to advance a loan facility to GNPC?
Honorable, I mean, GNPC simply did not have the money. I mean, I think we've had on occasions appear before some of the committees of Parliament to talk about indebtedness by some of the state agencies to GNPC. But the simple response is that we didn't have the resources to pay. Yeah.
So this loan agreement, which you say is largely based on correspondences between GNPC and the Finance Ministry, can you elucidate on the terms?
So the purchase price was 199, almost about 200 million. But because during the process of...
Please, cedis or dollars?
No, US dollars.
You see, because this is a house of record, if you can be exact, okay. I'll be most grateful. We'll be most grateful.
It's
all right.
199. 199. It's 199. Roughly $199 million.
What we have in our report here.
So I'm going to explain.
No. I'm saying that the figure as mentioned in here is exactly the 199 million. 199 million. Yeah. So yeah, sure.
So that was the purchase price. But because the assets were producing, there were liftings and cash calls that were being made. So when we settled, and typically with most of these transactions, you need to then reconcile the figures. So you look at revenues that have been received, payments that have been made, and you net them off to come to the amount. So we ended up paying $164 million. 164,798.
So if I can have some clarity, the $164.7 million is what is contained in the PIAC report, which is available to us, page 9, the semi-annual report. But you indicate that you received $199 million from the Ministry of Finance. Can you be clear? Exactly, is it 199 we are dealing with or 164? Because if you look at the rendition of the PIAC report, it says that this 164.7 were monies advanced by the Ministry of Finance to GNPC. So what exactly did you receive? Is it 199 or 164.7? Just for our records.
So, Honorable, for the records, as I said, the actual cost of the 7% was $199 million. But as I explained earlier, because the assets are producing assets, their payments, their cash calls, and their revenues that were made during the period when negotiations were going on. So once we agreed and the share agreement was executed, we needed to do a reconciliation of payments that have been made on behalf of JOHL and receipts that have been made by JOHL. And so once you do that reconciliation, the net amount that we needed to pay was the 164. So I hope that clarifies the figures.
So can we know how much hit your account from the Ministry of Finance?
It's the 164. We paid 164. So that's the net cash. I needed to explain, because the 199 and the 164, if you don't have context and you hear about the headline price, probably some confusion can be created in the minds of people. So the actual cost of the 7% was $199 million. But once you do the reconciliation, the net amount paid by JOHL for JOHL acquisition was 164. So the actual cash outflow was a 164. No. To Anadarko for the 7%. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the advance from the Ministry of Finance, why is it that in this whole transaction, Parliament was left out? There is no parliamentary approval for this transaction. And you do know that no Minister of Finance can release funds to any entity without parliamentary approval. Why is it that Parliament was left out?
You want to look at the question again. He is from GNPC, and I ask him why is the Finance Minister here.
No, but they have a legal department.
No. Why the Finance Minister? You should be asking the Finance Minister, why is your signature nowhere, not them? They had their mandate.
No, because Parliament was left out.
No, sure.
There's no parliamentary
but they
approval.
can't come to Parliament. Can they come to Parliament?
No. No,
so we're saying that you can't ask your question, but to put in directly to him the responsibilities of a finance minister.
I'm not saying it was his responsibility.
No, you say why didn't the finance minister come in here?
No, I was just asking why was Parliament left out?
Well, we say that question is overruled.
Okay, I'll rephrase.
I'll
rephrase the question. Can we understand from you? You made mention of your 2021 work program to Parliament. First of all, I was looking at the work program. I didn't see any. Do you have a copy here? Can you refer us to what exactly is in the 2021 work program?
I don't have a copy here, but we can make that available to you. I mean, we can make that available. As soon as I get to the office, I can make a copy available to you.
And are we to understand that by that work program, if we do find out, because I haven't seen any request to Parliament in that work program, I just want clarity. Are you suggesting that that work program constitutes a parliamentary approval?
No, not by any means. What I said is, beginning of the year, because the transaction were in discussion with Anadarko and Cosmos to acquire the stake, we had put it in our work program that we're looking at acquiring a stake in the Anadarko assets. But because the numbers had not been agreed and we're not even sure what value that was going to be put on it, we did not indicate a value for it. But we had a sentence saying that we're looking at acquiring that stake. Yes.
So no parliamentary approval. Let me move to the next one. I notice from the records I have
let's
here,
get it right. No parliamentary approval
for the finance minister's release of 164.7 million.
He is speaking on behalf of the finance minister.
No, I haven't said so. Yeah, I just wanted our records to reflect that.
No. But how can you make that point when he is not involved?
No, he's just indicated that his work program, which he made reference to earlier, at the time it was early days. They didn't have any. Figures.
Let's get it right, because you have some members of the Energy Committee around your table. What are you saying? You're saying that the matter was not mentioned in your work program, or it's mentioned in the work program?
So, Honorable Chair, I think the earlier question had to do with the fact that there was no mention of acquisition in our work program. And I said we did. It is contained in our work program, but there were no figures put to it, which is different from, yes.
So there was no parliamentary approval for the acquisition, was there?
He's answered that one. He said that there was a mention of it in the work program to Parliament, to the committee. No, he's made that. He's very clear on that the figures were not. But there are two things, the figures and the fact of the acquisition. Yeah. So we knew about the fact of the acquisition, except that we didn't know about the figures. That's the point you're making.
The Honorable Chairman is not testifying before the committee. No. I think the witness should be allowed.
We take parliamentary notice, or we are aware of that.
I agree with you. I agree with you perfectly.
So how do you mean by
no.
If you agree with me?
I agree with you that we can take parliamentary notice, okay, of matters stated in their work program, and that's why my earlier question was whether or not it was specifically stated in your work program and the amount was specified. That was the question I asked you earlier.
That's the matter he dealt with. So when you say that I am now testifying, I'm going to get you to withdraw or to rephrase.
Well, Chairman, can I proceed?
I apologize for that.
I would like to find out from GNPC, why did it take you 10 months? Is the Deputy Minister raising a point of order?
No, he's an honorable member of the committee.
Yes.
Chairman, I didn't hear you rule on the categorical assertion that was attributed by Honorable Kuje to the witness to the effect that there was no parliamentary approval. He hasn't said so here. And so I think that statement should be expunged from the record.
No, it's been established that there's no parliamentary approval.
It cannot be part of the
evidence. I'm making a clear inference. Clear inference from the facts that have been presented. Do you have parliamentary approval? If you can show us.
Honorable members, order on the committee. Honorable Ablakwa, can you proceed with your questioning of the witness?
Actually, I think it's an important matter that I think we should address. Yeah, we should address it. He is quite clear in his mind, and he's put it on record that there was no approval. But let's find out, where should the approvals be coming from anyway? What kind of approvals are you talking about?
I'm talking about the release of the $164.7 million by the Minister of Finance. It's public funds. And the Minister of Finance cannot disperse public funds without parliamentary approval. The Constitution is very clear.
Wait a minute, Sammy, that is not disputed. What I'm worried about is that why are we putting it to him and putting it on record that there is no approval?
So in all fairness, that question should be put to the Minister of Finance when he takes the witness stands tomorrow. Okay? So we'll disallow that question. I thought you were dealing with the acquisition, because the acquisition is something that lies, at the doorsteps of GNPC. But when it comes to the release of funds, that's a different matter altogether.
Well, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to establish that matter clearly. But I was proceeding to my next set of questions. The first one relates to the incorporation instruments I have here of JOHL. When it arrived in Ghana, 15th August 2022, it means that you operated for about 10 months without any incorporation in Ghana. Any reason for that?
So, Honorable Chair, the company was incorporated in Cayman Island, as we said, by Ad-hoc. What we needed to do was to register the company as an external company in Ghana, and we needed to go through a KYC process. Between the period, our chief executive, Dr. Sapon, had to left, and we had a new chief executive, and so that arrangement took a bit of time to sort out, and that's why it took us quite some time. But we have since registered it as an external company in Ghana.
And the records I have here, can you confirm that the company's directors in Caymans, you changed from Dr. KK Sapon to Opoku Ashene Dankwa? Is that correct, please?
Yes, he's the new chief executive, yes.
And when was this effected, please?
And I need to check the date, but he took over somewhere in April. Yes, he took over. So to give a bit of background, the original directors were Ad-hoc directors. So once we acquired the company, we changed the directors from the Ad-hoc directors to GNPC appointed directors. And then obviously when Dr. Sapon left the corporation, we had to replace him with the new chief executive.
What do you say to civil society organizations like Imani, ASEP, and others who have argued.
Please, Sammy, wait a minute.
Let
me make my point. No,
Chair. Let me at least conclude the question.
No, wait a minute. I think we've understood among ourselves, I mean, the committee has made it quite clear that we are dealing with a specific allegation made in Parliament against the Minister of Finance. It's here. Now you're talking about Imani. We're not dealing with allegations made by Imani. If your question is directed towards what the honourable members on the other side raised in Parliament, for which reason we are here, deal with that. Money, we are not dealing with the money here.
But Chair, I would still put the question through without mentioning the civil society organizations. There's a school of thought that this whole JOHL transaction amounts to an international transaction, which should have also been approved by Parliament. But once again, no parliamentary approval. How do you respond to that?
Honorable Chair, I mean, that's getting into an area where probably I lack the necessary, yes, probably my colleague.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We take a different view from what the CSOs hold, because there have been cases that have ruled on what an international business transaction is. We have Clomega and GPHA, for instance, which makes a distinction between state-owned enterprises that are set up for commercial purposes and government. In this particular case, the transaction was between GNPC and Anadarko, and not government and Anadarko. And GNPC, under those authorities, is not classified as government. So it is not an international business transaction requiring parliamentary approval. Thank you.
Mr. Co-Chair, I mean, on the specific point of the illegality, I think Sami put it neutrally. I don't think we should be neutral. It should be very clear what it is. The allegation, there were 7 or so allegations made in Parliament. You keep saying they are grounds. They are allegations on the basis of which the finance minister is to be censured if it is found effectively guilty. One of them is that he ensured that there were illegal payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts in flagrant violation of specific provision 176 of the Constitution. Sami says it's alleged. It's not alleged by any outsider, by Parliament. I mean, members, what do you call it? What is the name? The promoters, not so much about NDC, about the. So that's what we are looking at.
I now want to come to the vexed issue of capital gains tax. PIAC is arguing that Ghana has been shortchanged. We have lost a lot of money. Can we have your take on that?
But are you the witness? Yes. So. No,
the chairman are here. We are capable of dealing with these matters.
Are you saying that the chairs are not knowledgeable enough to know the scope?
It's admitted. That he's
no.
Yeah. His interruption.
Honorable Ejapa Mesa, you are totally out of order. You don't heckle the Honorable Ablakwa. I think you are heckling him, and that is grossly unfair. That is unfair. That is unfair. Please, Honorable Ablakwa.
Again, disappointed. Somebody feels that he is heckled.
Yeah.
Who got to heckle you?
Let me commend the co-chairs for protecting me because I really came under heavy bombardment. But I hope my question is clear about the capital gains tax, which I'm sure you have seen in the PIAC report.
Yes, Honorable Chair, yes, we have, but GNPC doesn't have any role as far as tax is concerned. We can advise, I mean, if our expertise is required on specific areas of assessment, but ultimately it's the responsibility of GRE.
But I would have thought that JOHL is a subsidiary of
That's
GNPC.
fine. Let me ask a question directly.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question directly. He wants to know, there has been an issue here. He wants to know whether it is true or not. There is some allegation, that there doesn't appear to have been any capital gains paid. As far as you know, GNPC, has there been a payment of capital gains tax? Yes or no?
So, Honorable Chair, I know that some payments were made to Government of Ghana.
Full stop.
Yes.
Thank you.
By Ad-hoc, yes.
Okay.
Can we kindly be apprised of how much has been paid so far out of the $164.7 million? I'm referring to the acquisition amount from the Ministry of Finance.
Okay. So
yes, paid back to the Ministry of Finance.
Out of that amount, we have paid 60 million to Government of Ghana, and we intend to pay more when received from other liftings that we've made coming. Yes.
And again, I have been going through all the budget statements. It doesn't reflect in any documents in Parliament. Do you have any guidance in that direction? Any records of that payment?
Honorable Chair, if you can repeat your question, please.
Is there any record of the payment of $60 million?
Oh, yes.
Can you share with us? Because we don't have any record. I've gone through all the budget statements, even the media review. It doesn't reflect.
We can make copies to you, the SWIFT messages and transfers. We can make those available to you. And I'm sure Ministry of Finance, if the request is made to them, will confirm that they've received the 60 million from us.
My final question to you relates to what appears to indicate that this was not the original thinking of GNPC. If you look at page 9 of the PIAC report, it says that although the acquisitions were initially intended to be held by GNPC ex Ploco, they are in fact being held by JOHL. My colleagues on the Mines and Energy Committee also have indicated that when you met them, you didn't give indication that this would be some permanent subsidiary and that ex Ploco will be in charge of this whole transaction. What accounts for this change in policy? And is it a case that some of these institutions are feeling quite misled, that you appear to have misled them, or you are not particularly transparent in dealing with them? How do you respond to that?
Honorable Chair, we haven't misled anybody. We're still in the process of assigning the stake to ex Ploco. So that original objective or original intent hasn't changed. As I said, the structure of the transaction wasn't dictated by GNPC. When we mentioned to our stakeholders and the other oversight bodies, we thought that we're going to buy the stake, not the company. Obviously, the structure changed, and we had to buy the company. So we're going through the process. In fact, or indeed, the approval that we got from the Ministry of Energy was very specific, that it needed to be assigned to ex Ploco. And the board of GNPC is going through the process of assigning that.
Thank you very much. Honorable
Chair, though I said finally, can we know what will happen to JOHL when you complete the process, just for the record?
It will be dissolved as a company. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Honorable Patrick Boma, do you have any questions for the witness?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied with the answers provided. Thank
Honorable Senator Ajiman Rawlings.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. I would like to know, in your earlier submission, I think your manager of legal mentioned that GNPC had to take advantage of the opportunity however it presented itself does that mean that it was with the willingness to more or less overlook certain requirements in terms of a company having to be registered in Ghana before you could actually do this? Because from what we've been informed of so far, JOHL did not become registered until this year, which is 10 months after you started doing business with them. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I said that within a certain context. What I said was that when these opportunities come, it's the seller that determines how they're going to sell their asset. GNPC doesn't decide how they're going to sell their asset. Now, in this particular context, and petroleum agreement has what we call, and what the seller would say, stabilization clauses that allowed them to do this within a certain framework. The new law is what has come in to say it has to be registered. Previously, it has to be incorporated in Ghana. Previously, you could be registered as an external company and operate in Ghana. These are petroleum agreements that came into being before the new law, 2016 Act 919. So when Ad-hoc decided to structure the acquisition the way it did, it was operating under the old law, and the PA stabilizes the contract. So it's allowed to do that within the context of the circumstances that existed at the time that they signed on or the petroleum agreement was ratified. And as has been said, initially it was GNPC, the intention was for GNPC to actually acquire it directly, so the participating interest. But Ad-hoc structured it differently because of the circumstances at that time. So GNPC took that stake with the intention of transferring the stake to ex-Bloco. But I think due to certain circumstances, GNPC was not able to do that immediately. But one of the reasons why GNPC went into this transaction was to increase reserves. And that has become a very, very important issue, not only for GNPC, but for government. And I think it's within that context that the Minister for Energy even approved the transaction in the first place. So I think we were looking at the priority of increasing reserves, also looking at the framework, obviously, but within the framework that Ad-hoc was operating, we think that they had the right to do what they did, and GNPC took on that interest with the intention of transferring to ex-Bloco to comply with Ghana law. Sorry, thank you. Would you be so kind as to give the committee an idea of the structure of JOHL compared to ex-Bloco, because you keep referring to the fact that it has a different structure? So when I talk about the different structure, it's just in terms of how it came into being. In terms of the structure of JOHL, GNPC is the majority shareholder of JOHL. It's also the majority shareholder of ex-Bloco. So ex-Bloco and JOHL are what we call affiliates. So they are related, but with GNPC holding 100% shareholding in both companies. I'm getting a bit confused because you said majority shareholder. Now you're saying 100% shareholder. Sorry, which is 100% shareholding in both JOHL and ex-Bloco. Okay, because earlier on you mentioned that there was an issue with the shareholders and the dividends to the shareholders not being brought directly into the Petroleum Holding Fund because the shareholders cannot have that, more or less. You kind of implied that, correct? Yes. So okay, what I said, if I could clarify, was that when you look at the PRMA, it says revenue due to the Republic from the direct or indirect participation. And we're talking about, and I said the important words, keywords there were revenue due. What is due a shareholder from its subsidiary? And that is determined by the Companies Act. And that says that it's the dividends from the subsidiary that goes to the shareholder. So that's the explanation that I gave when that question was posed.
Honorable Chair, if I can add to that, in terms of treatment, I mean, the revenues of ex-Bloco will not be treated any different from that of JOHL as far as GNPC is concerned, because they are both, they are, what do you call it? 100% owned by GNPC, subsidiary of GNPC. So the same application.
They are both limited liability companies.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Is that to say that when the transfer from JOHL happens to Exploco, the money will still not be put into the Petroleum Holding Fund? Is that what that means?
Directly, yes.
Yeah.
It will still have to go in the form of dividends, because it's still, Exploco is still a subsidiary of GNPC. So the revenue that goes in will be the dividends.
Yeah.
Honorable Chair, if I can make this point, I think there's a lot of focus on revenue. Nobody is talking about cost. I mean, these assets come with huge costs, and probably to explain, you know.
But why do you say nobody is talking about? You already told us the acquisition cost.
No. I'm talking about the operating cost
of the company.
Of the company.
Well, you set up your company, you expect to operate it at some cost. Who doesn't know that?
Yeah, but because you see, when they talk about putting the revenue into PHF, nobody is talking about how we manage our.
We seem to accept that you're not making losses. So whatever it is, you pay your cost and there's some revenue to put somewhere. That's what I think the concentration is about, not your cost.
Honorable Chair, I mean, we find ourselves currently in a regime of high prices. If price fall, you can't be too sure. The other point also that I wanted to make is
say that again. Which one can't we be too sure about?
So I'm saying that GOHL, currently oil prices are high.
Yes.
And you could find yourself in a situation where oil prices could be not so high. And so you need to manage your costs and other things very well. But I think the point I wanted to make is that GOHL carries GNPC. You see, I think we need to distinguish between the stake that GNPC has in the operating fields and what GOHL holds. GOHL is part of the contractor party. GNPC is not part of the contractor party. So as far as the arrangement is concerned, GNPC is carried by GOHL. I mean, in effect, what I'm saying is that when there are cash calls, GOHL has to pay GNPC shares of the cash call before even GNPC gets money to pay. So in that regard, GOHL is not very different from Cosmos or Tallow or, for that matter, PetroSA. And I think that distinction needs to be made and made in very clear terms. Yeah.
Have any dividends been paid so far into the Petroleum Holding Fund to date from JOHL, and could you share with us?
The only thing that has been paid is income tax. Now that we've registered it in Ghana, we have up to the end of the year to put our financials together. The board will... I'm sorry. No dividend has been paid. Yeah.
Honorable Rollins, please go ahead.
Honorable Chair, the only reason why I needed to explain is that dividend is only paid when you do your financials, you declare profit. The directors then decide that they have to pay dividend. But that hasn't happened, so I thought I needed to give that explanation.
Would GNPC be in a position to give us a reconciliation statement with regards to the difference in price from the 199 million, which also finally became 164,798,691 $1 million?
Readily, we will do that. We'll give that to you. Okay.
Do you have the reconciliation statement here?
But Mr. Co-Chairman, why would we be worried about that anyway? That's an advantage to the country. It was supposed to be 199. They did whatever computations, and then it came to 164.
It's in the interest of accountability and transparency.
You're worried that we got a reduced, rebated purchase price.
Honorable Chair, will make them available.
I know you can, but I'm just wondering if anybody's worried about the fact that it's been rebated and we're paying cheaper. Maybe suggested we should have paid 200 million.
In fairness to the honourable members, testimony has been given that shows a difference, okay, of about 20-something million, right? So the documentary evidence regarding that, difference can be made available to the committee to confirm.
It's not 24 million paid by Ghana. It's 24 million that Ghana had for free.
Yes, but still, it is important that that is confirmed, to the committee. So that's fine. It's not a problem. Okay, Honourable Rawlings, have you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Very well. Honourable Imedo, do you have a question? You have questions? All right, please go ahead. I'm surprised that you have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Sir, thank you very much for the explanation. I think you make things clearer. What I want to find out from you is that with this transaction of the JHOL, would you say that it has given GNPC any advantage?
Yeah, it has. We're now part of the joint operating agreement, the JOA. So we sit with the contractor party, so decision making and all other things, JOHL is party to it. And so long as they are subsidiary of GNPC, GNPCs can influence some of the decisions that are made direct. So, and obviously there's capacity building and all the other things. So those are things that, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairs, let me seek leave of you before I ask my question. Because I'm going to ask a question that borders on opinion. But permit my ignorance. I would want to understand things better. That's why I ask. It is not mischievous. If JHOL had not acquired the interest in which company is that? Ad-hoc. What would have happened? What would have been the situation? Thank you.
So, Honourable Chair, JOHL, and I'm being very careful here. GNPC bought JOHL. So, like we said earlier, JOHL was established by Ad-hoc. So GNPC bought it. Obviously, if JOHL had not been established by Ad-hoc with a 7% carved out interest, it meant that Cosmos would have had all the stake of Ad-hoc. Yeah, they would have. Yeah, obviously, they would have done so.
Thank you very much. Honourable Ahiefo.
Co-Chair, thank you very much. From the preliminary comment, you indicated clearly that the PIAC report was shared with you. However, you disagree with it. Now, PIAC report is now a public document. May I know what you have done to point out the contradictions?
Honourable Chair, we can only react to PIAC, and we sent I think PIAC themselves alluded to it that they disagree with our position as far as the treatment is concerned. So I think that's something that...
You have a copy of what you sent to PIAC in disagreement?
Yeah, we can send you. I think you read some of the reports that we sent to them. We can make available to you our report, or let me call it our comments to PIAC.
I said so because the co-chair said once GNPC is coming, you will make those documents available for us.
It says they are available, co-chair. So is there one of the...
In other words, your correspondence with PIAC on these matters, yes, if you can make them available to the committee.
Do so, Honourable Chair.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, the second question.
Mr. Speaker.
It is correct that oil was lifted amounting to 100,748,907.95 cent, that is United States dollars, and same was paid into international account in London, offshore accounts in London. Who holds these accounts in London?
The accounts are held by JOHL. So, so let me clarify this point. I think I said it earlier. Total revenue to date is 153 million. That's how much, in terms of receipts, how much we have gotten from sale of oil. Because I mentioned that we're pooling the cargoes. Out of that, we have paid roughly $147 million in terms of cash calls and taxes and other. Yes.
The question is simple regarding who hold the accounts.
Yes.
And you have answered
yes.
it. Okay. Now, you also indicated to the committee that the money for the acquisition of the 7% was a loan from Ministry of Finance at interest. How much was the interest rate?
I think that the number, I need to work out the interest, but it adds up to additional $5.2 million. Yeah. We need to work that out.
The interest rate, is it 2%,
no, I'm not
3%,
sure of the
3%?
rate, but the amount is 5.2 million. Yeah, so I need to work it out, but the interest amount is 5.2 million.
Do you have a document between you and the Finance Ministry?
There is.
To tender?
Yes.
Before us?
Yes.
To that effect?
Yes.
You also said Ministry of Energy has given you an approval. Do you have the approval letter?
Approval for... Yes, we do.
And you also said Parliament has approved the work program, which included the acquisition. So,
Honorable Chair, probably may need direction, and I'm being very careful. What I said was the acquisition, the intent was contained in our work program. There were no figures attached to it. So to the extent that we made Parliament available of our intention, and Parliament did not...
You're seeking our direction and you're going ahead to answer the question.
Okay.
You've almost answered the question, so why not conclude?
Yeah, I think you should proceed because you are...
If I had asked, I would have said that you already answered it, but you have...
Please go ahead. Please go ahead and answer the question.
I'm just saying that to the extent that it was contained in our work program and there were no issues with it, I mean, about the acquisition, yes.
You promised to make the approval of the work program available to the committee?
No, I wouldn't have the approval. We submit our work program, and if there are issues, they are discussed with the select committee. We are not giving approval specifically as to Parliament having. Obviously, we'll be told that the committees.
We're going to understand because, as I said, you have senior members of the committee, the committee you report to in Parliament here on this table. So don't struggle much with that issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well, Honourable Ahim.
Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Very well. We had earlier on decided that the Honourable Ejapa Mensah is conflicted and would not be allowed to ask any questions of the staff of GNPC. The witness, he's deeply conflicted, and I won't be surprised if he was apprised of everything before he came here. But in the interest of fairness, we've decided that he should ask just one question of the witness. Just one question.
Unilateral decision, but you have not parties in this one. So
that's not true. You bear
the burden by yourself. I have no parties in that.
Okay, Honourable Ejapa Mensah.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take the comment that you made as in jest, because indeed, as a member of the committee, I reserve the right to ask questions.
Very well.
I'm satisfied with the competent answers that have been provided by the members who represented GNPC.
I'm sure you will not fail to be satisfied.
Oh yes, indeed I am, yes. Because I just wanted them to address this phraseology in the PIAC report, which suggests that the acquisition of the 7% interest in Jubilee and 10 by GNPC later ceded to its subsidiary. What would be their response to this assertion that indeed this was ceded to them, to JOHL? Yes, that's not what happened. So that's what I want them to clarify.
Very well. Yes, Mr. Dazi.
So, Honorable Chair, that's a wrong assertion. I mean, as we've explained, JOHL was already established by an Ad-hoc with a 7%. We only bought the shares of that company. So that's a wrong assertion. And those are the things that the areas of disagreement that we have with PIAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Honorable Sama Blakwa, it looks like you have a follow-up question.
Just to find out if this loan agreement between you and GNPC and the Finance Ministry, I'm still being.
Honorable Blakwa, please concentrate on asking the witness.
In line with Act 919, do we have any parliamentary approval on the agreement?
Yes, Mr. Dazi, do you have an answer to the question?
Honorable Chair, you know I explained earlier that we don't have a formal agreement corresponding, and you said legally that's a form of...
Yes.
Yeah, but we haven't come to Parliament.
Well, in terms of the formation of contracts, you don't need, a contract in the four corners of a paper, but it's also a legitimate question to ask whether or not the transaction had parliamentary approval. Okay, the Minister of Finance will be here tomorrow. I believe that that question can be asked of him. So,
if you allow me, I was just relying on section 1015 of Act 919, which provides that any borrowing exceeding the CD equivalent of 30 million United States dollars for the purpose of exploration, development, and production shall be approved by Parliament and shall be in consonance with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. So this is the basis for
that's the basis
for my question.
Counsel to GNPC, can you answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, at the time that we entered into this transaction, I think because of the way the transaction went, we didn't seek parliamentary approval, but we intended to do that.
The time you intended to seek parliamentary approval, but could not because of the circumstances.
Yes.
All right. So it means that there is no parliamentary approval for that transaction.
For the loan, yes.
The loan.
GNPC is taking, the government of Ghana is giving some money to GNPC to acquire. Mr. Jodaze, I'm wondering why you're not taking this opportunity to explain to the committee and to Ghana how GNPC is suffering from governments of this country. You don't want to explain anything? Well, governments.
Honorable Chair, I alluded to it, and I think as a member of the Mines and Energy Committee, we've made
I know about this matter.
Yes,
so
and also to the Finance Committee about some other agencies' indebtedness to us.
Mr. Dazi, despite the help you are getting from my co-chair,
they didn't comply with any official loan agreement and anything from you. They just took your money. Now they're asking you, where is your contract, because you raised the money from somewhere. Those same people who have forced you not to have money. Now the question is, why didn't you come out with the contract? Okay, it's got to be fair to GNPC, be fair to GNPC.
Yes. Despite, as I was saying, Mr. Joseph Dazi, despite the fact that the co-chair is asking questions about the circumstances under which you operate as a statutory corporation, you would agree, wouldn't you, that this is a transaction that ought to have come to Parliament for approval?
Yeah, my colleague has alluded, yes, has agreed to that. So we will rectify that.
Very well. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sorry, bear with me. That is let's get your choosers right. Is that in terms of the acquisition itself or the financials?
It's a money advance to us by
government.
Yeah, by government. So post.
And you would have had the contract. The contract would have been between who and who?
Between us and Ministry of Finance.
The GNPC as a government entity, government corporation,
yeah,
and then government.
Yeah.
It's kind of on lend or something.
Yes, I will be guided by what the lawyers say in terms of what the actual wording and structure should be.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, very well. Honorable members, are there any other questions? Yes, Honorable Anyefo.
Yeah. Honorable Co-Chair, he mentioned that some capital gain tax payment has been made, of which he is aware. How much was the capital gain tax that was made? Aware. No, he said he is aware.
Honorable Chair, I need to check the figure, but I know it's in the region of about 170 million. Yeah, but we need to check and be very specific on the amount. Yeah.
Very well. Honorable members. Okay, Honorable Ajiman Rawlings.
Co-Chair, I'm just a little bit confused at the moment. Who has oversight over JOHL? Because a couple of the questions we've asked with regards to what JOHL is doing, GNPC has not been able to provide the information. That's why I just want a bit of clarity.
What information is that? What information do you need?
That's the specifics of tax that the...
No,
I didn't
excuse
say
me.
they had to pay.
In respect of let's get this clear, yeah, members of the committee. The capital gains tax was to be paid by an Ad-hoc, because it's an Ad-hoc that made the gain from the sale of his capital asset. So that has to be made very clear. All right. So they will not be in a position to confirm whether or not it was paid, because the tax liability was not imposed upon them. Right? Or is not to be imposed upon them by law. Right.
There were a few other questions with regards to payments, which unfortunately we have not been able to get full details of, which is why I'm asking, who do we ask then? Because hence my generic question, who has oversight over JOHL and its activities?
Well, I would have thought that it depends specifically on the kind of payment you have in mind. If it's a payment by GNPC, they should be able to answer it for themselves. If it's a payment by the Ministry of Finance on behalf of Ghana, Ministry of Finance should be able to pay, explain for themselves. So we should be clear in our minds which ones we're talking about.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, just...
No, Honorable Kwame Nyimedu.
Just for clarity. Yeah. Okay.
I ask this for emphasis. The lawyer explains Section 7 of the Petroleum Revenue, and the phrase she explains is revenue due, whether it's direct or indirect. Is it your assertion to actually make this committee believe that in the opinion of GNPC, no revenue was due to be paid, so far as Section 7 is concerned?
So,
should I
in terms of the dividends,
go through it? Let me make it clearer. The PIAC report, the page 9, the semi-annual report.
2022 one.
Yes, sir. Page 9, paragraph, the last paragraph, talks about Section 7 of the PRMA, provides that all revenues due from the direct or indirect participation of the Republic in petroleum operations, including the carriage and additional participating interest, be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. PIAC is convinced that the proceeds of liftings by JOHL forms part of Ghana's petroleum revenues and therefore should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Now, you explain the phrase, as I have said, the revenues due. In your opinion, would you say that there was a revenue due which should have been paid but into this fund, or there was no revenue due? What is your take on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our take is that for the period that we are talking about, there's been no revenue due because the revenues that PIAC was referring to was from each lifting. And as we've explained, in relation to limited liability companies, you don't pay revenues to shareholder every time you sold a product. So our explanation is that there's been no revenue due. The revenue will be due after we have done our accounts and determined whether there's been profit, and then from that, dividends will be paid. So far, no, we haven't had any, there's no profit, and so no dividends are payable. It will be at the end of the year that a determination can be made as to whether we will be able to pay any dividends to GNPC.
Well, thank you very much. Do you have another question? Kwame?
Last question.
Very last.
In your view, therefore, anybody who says that the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance had made illegal payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts in violation of the Constitution would not be speaking the truth. Is that correct?
Honourable Chair, I am not in a position to agree or disagree with that statement because I don't know.
Let me make it clearer. If by this transaction, let me make it clearer. Can I ask another question?
To be able to take a position.
Can I ask another question? Can I ask another question? What I want.
Very last one, seriously.
Right. What I want to say is that per the transaction of the JOHL with respect to the liftings, with this transaction alone, if any person concludes that the Minister of Finance, no, I'm specific, if the Minister of Finance had actually made illegal payments with respect to oil revenues, that person would not be speaking.
You see, the question is very argumentative. However, I get, the reason why you are asking the question, because the ground that we are investigating says that there was an illegal payment, made of oil revenue. Okay, so directly, Mr. Joseph Dazi, and if maybe Adjoa could assist in that respect. So the lifting was done by Jubilee Holdings, is that correct?
Right. Yes, Honorable Chair.
Okay, and the 100 million constituted receipts of the sale of the oil, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And it was Jubilee Holdings that received the money?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Was it Jubilee Holdings that paid it into an account?
So, as I explained, it's the lifter, the buyer who pays it into an account designated.
So, in this case, who was the buyer?
So,
do you have any information?
So, I think the 100 million referred, Tallow bought that cargo.
Okay, so it was Tallow that bought the oil.
Yes.
And Tallow subsequently paid 100 million into an account of Jubilee Holdings.
Specified by JOHL.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So, that will be all for you.
Yes.
Oh, no, the opinion is not necessary.
Transaction illegal.
But why? You don't need to.
From what he's been talking about, what is the illegality about it? They have the oil. They sold it to, what is the name company? Which is the name? Tallow. Tallow then were instructed to pay the money of the goods that they had bought into an account designated by them. Where is the criminality in this matter? That's what the co-chairman is trying to...
Honorable Katie, nobody has attributed criminality.
Well, what is the illegality? Illegality is criminality.
Not every illegal act is criminal.
You can violate a statute without criminal. So let's get it right. What is the illegality on this? That's what I think co-chairman is...
No, we are not asking them for their opinion. We will form an opinion based upon the factual evidence they place before us. All right, honourable members, I think we should bring an end to this. Session. Okay.
Chair, I thought there was an important outstanding issue from a response I received.
Yes.
On the violation of Act 919, Section 1015. The response is that they will comply. I just want to understand if that is allowed. I mean, can you comply after the fact? I thought that you must seek parliamentary approval before.
Well, parliamentary approval could retrospectively be sought, rather that we agree that we are going to.
By what provision?
This is not for us. This is for the speaker.
No, Act 919 is very clear.
This is for the speaker. If there is a breach on that, that is not why we are here. We are here under paragraph 3 or 4 of the allegation. Let's deal with that. If we have any other worries, we'll deal with that on the floor.
Yeah.
Comprehend?
In this matter,
Yes, okay.
Okay. Mr. Joseph Dazi and your team, thank you very much for attending upon the committee and testifying. Just in case we have any other issues that we need clarification for, we may have to either call you back or write to you formally for you to provide that information. But I thank you very much on behalf of my co-chair and the committee for your attendance upon the committee and for the evidence that and assistance you have provided to the committee. Thank you.
But co-chair, before they rise, GNPC. Yesterday it was Esploco. Then as I say, nobody seems to be able to pronounce the name. JHOLTK. They said that. Look at that. GNPC. Fix this masters. We are tired. More so your committee in parliament, we are tired. GNPC. Today GNPC. Tomorrow GNPC. 3 days GNPC.
And the impression could be created that
you thank them already. This is my comment.
Creating this,
to be my comment.
So that you can circumvent the statutory obligations you have.
All right, that's all right. Yes. But fix these matters. Fix them once and for all, so sanity can prevail.
Okay. That's well noted, Chair, and we'll also send the additional information that you've requested. We'll make them available to you.
Very well.
Okay.
Chair, I thought you add that it is for the ministers of state not to be leading them into temptation. The ministers direct policy. So I don't think that. I think we are
they struggle a lot.
I think we are blaming the wrong guys.
And the deputy minister is here. He is part of.
No, you're talking about him. You are not talking about people. You are not talking about those. You are not talking about them.
Exception.
Yeah, you would.
To this
and I support you 100%.
On the NDC side.
100%. But they started it.
Mr. Dazi, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are discharged. Yes.
For the other you members, what is the name again? Press, media. Tomorrow is what? 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. That's for your information. So you can leave now. Leave us alone.
Yes. We will be sitting at 10 a.m.
You can come at 9:30. We don't have any problem with that. Yeah.
Very well.
You don't get this.